Have you ever stared at a number on a screen and felt your entire world shrink to that single devastating figure? A number glowing in bright, unforgiving red. A number that represents more than just money. It represents a mistake, a failure, a moment where you betrayed your own rules, your own judgment, your own self. You close the laptop. The room is silent, but your mind is screaming. It's a storm of regret, of anger, of a profound and hollow shame that settles deep in your gut. You ask yourself the same questions over and over. Why did I do that? How could I have been so stupid? What is wrong with me? If this sounds familiar, I want you to know you are not alone. And I want you to know that the biggest battle you will ever fight as a trader is not with the market. It's not with your strategy, your indicators, or your broker. It's the battle that begins in the crushing silence after a devastating loss. Most trading content on the internet will sell you a dream of a perfect strategy, a holy grail that promises you'll never lose again. This is not one of those videos. This is a video about the one skill that nobody talks about, yet it's the one that separates the 99% who fail from the 1% who build lasting careers. It's not about preventing losses. It's about how you recover from them. This is an in-depth guide to the most powerful tool in your psychological arsenal: radical self-forgiveness. This is the story of how you go from a blown account to a breakthrough. So, take a deep breath. Settle in, because the journey we're about to take might just change your trading and your life forever. Before we dive into the theory and the steps, I feel it's only right that I share with you the moment that forced me to learn this lesson. It's not a story I'm proud of, but it's a necessary one. It's the story of the trade that broke me. It was a few years into my journey. I wasn't a complete novice, but I was far from a seasoned professional. I had a few good months under my belt, just enough to become dangerous, just enough to let confidence curdled to arrogance. My account was at an all-time high, and I started to believe I had figured it out. I thought I had tamed the market. What a fool I was. The setup was in a hot, speculative tech stock. It had been on a parabolic run, fueled by hype and headlines. My system, my rules, everything I had painstakingly developed screamed at me to stay away. This is not your setup, they warned. This is gambling. But the FOMO, the fear of missing out, was a siren's call. I saw others online posting astronomical gains. I felt like I was being left behind. So I broke my first rule. I entered, not with my standard size, but larger. I felt a rush of adrenaline. The stock immediately ticked up, and I was in profit. My ego swelled. "See, you knew it," it whispered. "Your intuition is better than your rules." The initial target I had set was quickly approaching. My plan was to take profit there. But as the price hit my target, greed took over. "This thing is going to the moon," I thought. "Don't be an idiot and sell now." So I broke my second rule. I held on. I even added to my position, convinced I was a genius. And then it happened. A piece of news hit the wires, something about an SEC investigation. In the span of about 90 seconds, the stock plunged. It sliced through my entry point, then my mental stop loss. But I was frozen, paralyzed by disbelief. "It'll bounce back," I told myself. "This is just a shakeout." I broke the cardinal rule, the one rule that separates amateurs from professionals. I moved my stop loss. Then I moved it again. I was no longer trading. I was praying. I watched as weeks of hard-earned profits were erased in minutes. Then it cut into my base capital. The red on the screen grew larger, more menacing. It felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. When the margin call notification finally popped up, it was almost a relief. The decision was no longer mine. The system liquidated my position, crystallizing a loss that was, to me at that time, catastrophic. I closed the laptop. The silence I mentioned earlier, this was it. It was deafening. There was no anger at the market. There was no one else to blame. There was only me. And the voice in my head, my inner critic, began its assault. You are a failure. You knew the rules and you broke every single one. You are an impulsive, undisciplined gambler. You don't deserve to be a trader. You should just quit. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there, the shame washing over me in waves. This was the shame spiral in its purest form. It started with a single bad decision, a mistake, but it quickly morphed into a verdict on my entire character. It wasn't that I made a mistake, it was that I was a mistake. And in that moment of profound self-loathing, I made a vow. It was a subconscious, destructive promise. I vowed that I would make it all back. I would get revenge on the market. I would trade bigger, more aggressively, and prove that I wasn't a failure. That single vow, born from an inability to forgive myself, was infinitely more destructive than the loss itself. It was the beginning of a downward spiral that would take me months to escape. It was the moment I realized that your P&L can recover, but your psychology, once broken, requires a deliberate, painful process of rebuilding. That process starts with forgiveness.
My story isn't unique. In fact, it's the blueprint for how most trading careers die. It's a tragic, predictable cycle, and it is fueled entirely by the inability to forgive oneself. Let's break down that cycle, because understanding the trap is the first step to avoiding it. It all begins with that identity entanglement I experienced. When you're winning, you feel like a genius. When you're losing, you feel like an idiot. Your sense of self-worth becomes directly tied to your last trade. This is a fatal flaw. A professional athlete, a surgeon, a lawyer, they are all trained to separate their performance on a single task from their identity as a whole. A star quarterback who throws an interception doesn't believe he's a terrible person. He understands he made a tactical error. He resets and focuses on the next play. But as traders, especially when we are isolated, we internalize everything. The loss isn't something that happened to us, it's a reflection of us. This entanglement is the dry tinder waiting for a spark. The spark is the loss, and with the loss comes the inner critic, that voice that transforms a simple mistake into a damning indictment of our character. This is where self-blame is born, and this blame is the fuel for the entire destructive engine. What does this self-blame create? It creates the domino effect. First, it creates fear. After my big loss, I became terrified of losing again. I would see perfect A-plus setups, my edge playing out right in front of me, but I couldn't pull the trigger. I was paralyzed by the memory of the pain. This, of course, leads to missed opportunities. Second, watching those missed opportunities soar without you creates an intense feeling of FOMO, or fear of missing out. Your mind tells you you're not only losing money, you're now missing out on the winners too. You're falling further behind. Third, FOMO leads to chasing. You start entering trades late with no proper setup just because you can't stand to watch the market move without you. You're no longer acting based on a plan, you're reacting based on anxiety. And finally, this anxiety-driven chasing leads to the most dangerous behavior of all, revenge trading. This is where you abandon all logic. You oversize your positions, you throw your rules out the window. Your goal is no longer to trade well, it's that desperate, foolish vow I made to make it back. This is the make it back fallacy. It's the illusion that you are in a hole and you need to climb out. But this is a trick your mind plays on you. Every single morning, every single trade, you start at zero, ground zero. The money you lost yesterday is gone. It is sunk cost. Trying to make it back forces you to take out outsized risks that almost guarantee you will dig an even deeper hole. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. This entire cycle, from identity entanglement to self-blame to fear to FOMO to revenge trading, it all stems from one single point of origin: the refusal to look at your mistake, accept it, forgive yourself for it, and move on. Without forgiveness, you are chained to your last mistake, dragging its weight into every future decision you make. Breaking that chain is the only way to break the cycle.
So, how do we do it? How do we actually forgive ourselves, especially when the pain of the loss feels so raw and personal? It's not a single event. It's a process, a deliberate four-step practice that you can implement starting today. I had to learn this the hard way, through trial and error, but this is the framework that saved my career.
The first reaction to a painful loss is to either suppress the feeling or be consumed by it. Both are wrong. The goal is to observe it without judgment. You must separate your self from the emotion you are experiencing. One of the most powerful ways to do this is through journaling, but with a specific technique. As soon as you can after a bad trade, open a notebook or a document and write about it from a third-person perspective. Don't write, "I feel so angry and stupid." Write, "The trader felt a surge of anger. He was judging his decision harshly, calling himself stupid." Do you see the difference? This simple shift in language creates a space between you and the emotion. You are no longer the anger. You are the one observing the anger. You name the emotions. He is feeling shame. He is feeling regret. He is feeling fear about his next trade. This act of acknowledgement without judgment stops the emotional spiral in its tracks. You are not condoning the mistake, you are simply accepting the emotional response as a natural human reaction. You are treating yourself like a scientist observing data, not a judge delivering a verdict. The emotion is just a data point. The loss is just a data point. They do not define you. Acknowledge the data, and then you can begin to detach from its emotional charge. Once you've detached from the emotion, you can begin to work with the event itself. Right now, your brain has framed the loss as a failure. That word is loaded with judgment and finality. Your job is to actively and consciously reframe that narrative. You must stop seeing losses as failures and start seeing them as tuition. The market is the greatest teacher you will ever have, and sometimes its lessons are expensive. That catastrophic loss I experienced, it was the most expensive, but also the most valuable lesson of my career. It taught me about humility, about the deadly poison of ego, and about the absolute sanctity of my rules. It was a painful lesson, but it was a necessary one. So, after you've acknowledged the emotion, ask yourself this question: what is the tuition I paid for this lesson, and what did I learn? Look for the gift in the pain.
Did the loss expose a critical flaw in your trading plan? Did it reveal a psychological trigger you weren't aware of? Did it show you that you aren't mentally prepared for the level of risk you were taking? Write it down. Be specific. This loss taught me that chasing a parabolic move is a low-probability gamble. This loss taught me that my stop loss is my best friend, not my enemy. This loss taught me that I am most vulnerable to mistakes after a long winning streak. When you reframe a loss as a lesson you paid for, everything changes. You move from a position of victimhood, look what the market did to me, to a position of empowerment. Look what this experience taught me. You are no longer a failure, you are a student. And a student's job is to learn and grow. This reframe allows you to extract value from an event that would otherwise only cause pain.
Now that you've acknowledged the emotion and reframed the event, you need to let it go. This is often the hardest part. Our minds love to cling to painful memories, replaying them in a loop. To counteract this, you need a conscious, deliberate act of release. You need a ritual. This might sound strange or new agey, but rituals are powerful psychological tools. They signal to your subconscious mind that an event is over and it's time to move on. Your ritual can be anything that works for you, but it must be a physical and intentional act. For me, after journaling my loss, I would close the notebook, stand up, and walk away from my desk. I'd go outside, take 10 deep breaths, and literally say out loud, "The lesson is learned, the tuition is paid, I release this trade." That was my signal. The trading day was over, and I was not allowed to think about that trade again until my next review session. Here are some other ideas for rituals. Write the details of the bad trade on a small piece of paper and then safely burn it or tear it into tiny pieces and throw it away. Go for a hard workout at the gym. Physically sweat out the stress and frustration. Listen to a specific piece of music that you designate as your reset anthem. Meditate for 10 minutes, visualizing the negative energy of the trade leaving your body. The specific ritual doesn't matter as much as the intention behind it. It's an act of wiping the slate clean. You cannot start a new day, a new trading session, carrying the toxic weight of yesterday's mistakes. You must release them, formally and completely.
This final step is crucial because it closes the loop. Forgiveness is not an excuse for sloppy trading. It is not a get-out-of-jail-free card that lets you be undisciplined. In fact, it's the exact opposite. True forgiveness allows you to look at your mistake clearly without the distortion of ego and shame, so that you can recommit to your principles with even greater conviction. It allows you to say, "I forgive myself for that human error, and because I respect myself and my business, I am now recommitting to the rules designed to protect me from that error." After your ritual of release, the very next thing you should do is open your trading plan. Read it. Read your rules. Remind yourself what your A-plus setups look like. Remind yourself of your risk management protocol. This act reconnects you with the best version of yourself as a trader, the disciplined, patient, process-oriented professional. It shifts your focus away from the painful outcome of the last trade and back onto what you can actually control, your execution on the next trade. Your focus becomes simple and pure again. Execute the plan. Follow the rules. Let the market do the rest. By following these 4 steps, acknowledge and detach, reframe the narrative, ritualize the release, and recommit to your process, you create a robust system for processing loss. You transform it from a source of psychological trauma into a catalyst for growth. You turn poison into medicine.
Following this four-step process after every loss, big or small, has a profound cumulative effect. It does more than just help you get over a bad day. It fundamentally changes who you are as a trader. It forges a new identity. You see, many of us, especially when we're struggling, walk around with the subconscious identity of a struggling trader. We define ourselves by our inconsistency, our mistakes, our frustrations. And as long as you see yourself as a struggling trader, your actions will align with that identity. You will continue to struggle. The practice of self-forgiveness allows you to shed that old skin. It allows you to build, brick by brick, a new identity, the resilient professional. Who is the resilient professional? They are not a trader who never makes mistakes. Such a trader doesn't exist. They are a trader who has mastered the art of the comeback. Their strength is not in their perfection, but in their recovery time. When the resilient professional takes a loss, they don't spiral. They process. They run through the four steps. They feel the sting, acknowledge it, extract the lesson, release the pain, and recommit to their plan. Their bounce-back time from a mistake is measured in hours, not weeks. This identity shift is the ultimate goal. You start to take pride not in your winning trades, but in how professionally you handle your losing trades. You realize that true peak performance in trading, as in any elite field, is not about the absence of adversity. It's about your response to adversity. This is also where you discover the compound effect of forgiveness. When you learn to forgive yourself for the small, everyday losses, the paper cuts, you prevent them from accumulating into a giant infected wound. You deal with them, release them, and move on. This keeps your psychological capital account full and healthy. It prevents the buildup of pressure that eventually leads to a catastrophic, account-blowing mistake like the one that I made. You handle the small fires so they never become an inferno. Ultimately, you begin to operate from a state of abundance, not scarcity. The fear of loss diminishes because you know you have a robust process for dealing with it. You are no longer terrified of making a mistake, which paradoxically makes you less likely to make one. You trade with a sense of calm confidence, a quiet strength, knowing that you can handle whatever the market throws at you, not because you'll always be right, but because you have the resilience to get back up when you're wrong.
We started this journey in the dark, silent room of a trader's shame. We revisited my own painful confession, my own rock bottom. We dissected the destructive cycle that this self-blame creates. And then we laid out a clear, actionable path forward. A path built not on a new indicator or strategy, but on a foundation of psychological resilience. The journey from a blown account to a breakthrough is not about finding a way to never fall down. It's about learning how to get up with grace, with purpose, and with a lesson in hand. It's about understanding that your success as a trader will not be defined by your greatest win, but by how you chose to respond to your worst loss. The power to make that choice is already within you. The power to forgive, to learn, and to begin again. So here is my challenge to you. The next time you take a loss, and there will be a next time, I want you to resist the urge to spiral. Resist the urge to blame, to get angry, to seek revenge. Instead, I want you to pause, take a breath, and walk yourself through the 4 steps. Acknowledge the feeling as an observer. Reframe the loss as tuition. Perform your ritual of release and recommit to your professional process. Do this once, and you will feel a shift. Do this every time, and you will transform. You will build the unshakable mind of a resilient professional. You will finally become the trader you were always meant to be. Your past mistakes do not define your future unless you allow them to. Today is a new day. The slate is clean. Forgive yourself, and let's get to work.